Well, good evening, members, officers, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome to this Planning Committee meeting here at Lichfield District Council on the 31st of October 2022. We are also, of course, being joined by some who are viewing remotely by the live streaming, and I extend a very warm welcome to all of you as well. Members, if you look at your agenda, you will see that the first item is apologies, and so far I've had apologies from Councillor Salter, Councillor Barnett. Councillor Powell has apologised for the fact that he's going to be late arriving. We don't expect him here until perhaps 6:30 or thereabouts. Do we have any other apologies, please? Okay, so that completes the list of apologies. Thank you very much. Members, if anyone has a declaration of interest, could you please raise your hand to indicate that? Thank you. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the Ward Councillor for Orwas and Fradley, and I'd like to declare that.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And also Councillor Sonia Wilcox. Thank you. The same again for you. Thank you very much indeed. If we can record both of those councillors' declarations of interest, please. Thank you. I think that's exhausted all of those. So we now move on to item 3 on your agenda. I think all of you were probably present at the last Planning Committee meeting held here 4 weeks ago on the 3rd of October. Members, you've all had a copy of the minutes circulated electronically of that meeting, which was held on the 3rd of October. If you're happy for me to sign that as a true and correct record, would you please show? Thank you very much. Thank you. That pen's about had it actually. Thanks very much indeed, members. So that's item 3 on your agenda has been dealt with. We now move on to the main body of the purpose of this evening, which is the planning applications. And first of all, you will all be aware, I'm sure, but I'm just going to say for the sake of those people viewing, that 2 items on the agenda have been withdrawn. They were both withdrawn at the end of last week, and that is 20/00800/COUM. That's a Hawkshard application. And also the one at Chorley, Fairfield at Chorley, which is 22/00805/FUH. Both of those have been withdrawn by the applicants. Tonight, we are discussing just items 2 and 3 of the planning applications on the agenda. The first one then that we come to is 22/00143/FUL. This is 74 Park Road, Alderwas. And to take us through the report, I have on my right-hand side, Alex Matthews. And Alex, when you're ready, please, if you'd like to just describe this particular application. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Chair. Right, the site under consideration is to the rear of number 74 Park Road in Orwas, and the proposal is for the change of use of the existing annex to a holiday rental use class sui generis. So on screen at the moment, we've got the red line site plan depicting the application site. And on the following slide on screen now, we've got the aerial view. It's worth noting that the existing annex isn't presented on the aerial view as on screen at the moment. So this application is being reported to Planning Committee due to neighbour objections and also objections received from the Orwas Parish Council. I'd also at this moment like to draw your attention to the committee supplementary report. Within the supplementary, it's noted that the existing fencing has been removed and has been replaced with laurel hedging, which has been planted. So therefore, condition 2 is to be deleted from the recommended planning conditions as presented within the report. Right, in terms of the application site and surroundings, I've got site photographs presented on screen. We've got the frontage of number 74 and the highway presented within photograph number 1. It's worth noting that this property is grade 2 listed. So we've also photographed number 2 showing the parking area to serve the existing property at the front. Number 3, opposite the application site, photograph number 4, looking down into the application site, into the access area, with the rear annex presented down the bottom end of that driveway. Okay, so the annex as existing and also as proposed is a 2-bedroom annex with an L-shaped footprint. We've got on the next slide here further photographs depicting this annex. We've got brick elevations and tiled roof. Rear amenity is included, as well as off-street parking to serve the annex. It's also worth noting that the site falls within a conservation area and within the Oros neighbourhood plan area, but it's outside of the kind of Chase Sack zone of influence. As just mentioned, with regards to the supplementary, we've got the hedge presented within photograph number 7 at the rear of the, or in between the existing property at the front and the annex hereby under consideration. In terms of the proposal then, it's worth noting that there are no changes proposed to the layout or the exterior of the building. So as mentioned before, it's the change of use to the holiday rental, also included within the proposed development, a new boundary treatments, the subdivision of parking, the hedge planting, as mentioned, pedestrian gateway, and it's worth noting that the gateway isn't affixed to the listed building. It's worth also noting the appeal which relates to this application. The existing annex was granted permission on appeal, with a condition included to ensure the annex remains ancillary to the host dwelling of number 74 Park Road, Oros. It is, however, worth at this point noting that this is a new planning application, needs to be considered on its own merits, and it's for the assessment. It's hereby under assessment and determination on its own merits. Just to present a bit more detailing of the proposal, we've got plans and elevations on screen at the minute for the proposed holiday unit at the rear. So it's existing and proposed, so there are no changes presented to the to this building at the rear. So yeah, full assessment has been undertaken, including the comments of objection, consultees. It's worth noting policy presented no objection. The development proposal is considered to be acceptable in terms of its overall principle. There are no objections on highways grounds, subject to a planning condition to ensure the implementation of the parking and access. There are no arboricultural objections, subject to relevant planning conditions. And also our conservation and design team have been consulted and have fed back with regards to the proposal. Overall, no objections have been presented, subject to the laurel hedge being incorporated in place of an existing fence that was previously erected within the site. So overall, as outlined within the committee report, we've got a recommendation subject to approve, subject to planning conditions, and it's worth noting that condition 2 is to be deleted from the list of conditions as presented within the report. Thank you.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Could I just ask, as a point of information, with the legal officer, Councillor Powell has arrived. We're expecting you in about 20 minutes' time, Councillor Powell. So thank you that you've exceeded our expectations. You came in just as the planning officer was starting his presentation. Can I just have clarification that you would be happy for Councillor Powell to vote on this, please?
Chair, yes, I think the important thing is, did Councillor Powell hear Has he heard the whole presentation? As you came in, the officer was speaking, but you'd only just started speaking. Did you hear everything as you came in?
I did, yes.
And then you were happy that he, yes. So, Chair, no, there'd been no objection to you.
Thank you very much
taking part in the
indeed.
decision. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to seek legal advice on that so that there was no equivocation. So nice to see you, Councillor Powell. Thank you very much. We have one speaker on this, and so thank you very much to Alex Matthews there for his presentation. The speaker we have this evening is the applicant. It's Mr. Alan Spooner. Mr. Spooner, I'm not sure whether you're acquainted with the protocol here, but you will have 5 minutes to speak.
Yeah.
The time will start once you commence speaking, and at 4 minutes and 30 seconds, the clerk on my left will alert you to the fact that you have half a minute left. At the end of those 5 minutes, if you're still speaking, you do need to stop immediately. 5 minutes has elapsed. Thank you very much. Your time will start as soon as you commence. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
I'd like to start by addressing the objectives and concerns raised by our neighbours and the parish council. With regards to the only 3 users on the
Airbnb without permission from May 21. We were really unaware that we needed permission as it was classed as part of our house as an annex. And it was only when we received the notification that I contacted council straight away and spoke to a chap called Don and discussed the notification and what we'd need to do to submit our planning application. With regards to the housing, increased housing density, with this planning application, we would be adding to the housing. The annex is already being built, and we're not applying to increase the size or change or only the change of use. Regards to the inappropriate development in the conservation area and the grounds for listed building, as I just said, we already have planning approved the annex and are not looking to change the setting or the listed building or attach anything to the listed building. Since using the annex as an Airbnb, we've not had any notification or conversations from any of our neighbours or official departments regarding any noise or disturbance issues. As part of the Airbnb rules, it clearly states no parties or gathering in or outside of the annex. With regards to the adequate provision of off-street parking concerns raised, the highways inspector had no issues with the amount of off-street parking. We have a driveway on the eastern boundary of the property with 2 off-road parking spaces, and the second driveway on the western side of the property provides access to the rear garden and to the annex, and also leads to parking for at least 3 to 4 vehicles. The county highways have confirmed that the submitted site layout showed that there would be enough room to manoeuvre a vehicle to leave the site in a forward gear instead of reversing. And even if the turning area is blocked by another vehicle, the highways would not see an issue with the vehicle if it had to reverse off the site. With regards to the nearby on-street parking and proposed aggravated existing parking problems concerned, all our visitors, whether it be family and friends staying in the annex, don't park on the road as we have more than enough off-road parking as confirmed by the highways inspector. With regards to the tight street is not equipped for a large volume of traffic, the concern that was raised, the only additional traffic generated by the Airbnb or family visitors to the annex is possibly 1, maybe 2 extra vehicles, but more than likely to be 1, which I don't think sort of as addition to a large volume of traffic. Regards to the highways access and safety concerns related, the highways have acknowledged the concerns regarding access and safety related issues, but noted it would be unreasonable to suggest excuse me, that the scheme would be unacceptable on the highways related grounds, as they commented we have acceptable access on and off the site, and again a turning circle allowing the vehicle to leave the site in a forward gear. With regards to the objection from the parish council as not complying with an early planning condition regarding the internal fence, we did erect a closed board fence between the annex and the main house. This was to keep our 2 dogs away from anybody visiting, whether it be family or visiting the Airbnb, and staying in the annex, realising that this was against the original planning conditions. The fence has now been removed after consulting with the planning officer and replaced with the laurel hedge and a 5-bar access gate, evidence of which I've supplied to the planning officer and if you've heard this evening. All the other raised objections from the parish council regards to an Airbnb without permission increases traffic movement and housing density, I feel hopefully that I may have covered in my earlier comments. As you can see from the report, we haven't had any objections from any of the district council departments, including highways, conservation design, spatial policy and the architectural arboretorial officers. I would also like to add that the visitors to the Airbnb do use the village shops, pubs, cafe and visit the National Arboretum. It may not bring a lot of revenue to the area, it certainly brings people into the area and highlights what sort of village it is. Hopefully I've addressed the objection concerns raised, and given that the Lichfield District Council are recommending approval subject to conditions set out in the report, which we fully agree to, I would ask that the application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Spooner. Thank you for that. And within the time as well.
Thank you.
Members, do we have any comments, questions, etc.? Yes, Councillor Matthews, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like the option to go back to the original application and then the subsequent planning field proceedings. I'm slightly confused as the effectiveness or as a condition 3 and also condition 4. To me, they're slightly confusing. So my question is, it was originally granted permission on appeal, was that for residential use or holiday use? And what is the difference between short stay holiday accommodation and in condition 3, other than holiday accommodation purposes? Because to me, the two are the same. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Matthews. Anybody else wishing to speak at the moment or ask a question? Okay, Councillor Ray, please. Yes, mind you, I think we need to remember that this is only an application for change of use. The actual, the building has been built with planning, in accordance with planning permission, no objection from consultees. And I think the other point is important. It is an objective, strategic objective of this council to promote tourism. And the applicant made the point about the National Memorial Arboretum. We do want to attract visitors to our district, and this is just one premises, but it does help with our local economy, and it's consistent with that strategic objective of the council. So I would support the application.
So you're suggesting approval?
Yes.
Do we have
a seconder for that, please? Okay, thank you, Councillor Cross. Oh, sorry, we need to answer the question that was posed by Councillor Matthews. Please, Alex.
Thank you. So yeah, it's worth. So there was an appeal overturned to grant the permission for the single-storey annex in the rear garden of number 74 Park Road, Ross. It's worth, however, drawing everyone's attention to the fact that we've got a new planning application hereby under consideration for the proposed change of use to an Airbnb within the same building with no alterations to that building. So yeah, there's a listed building at the front of the site, and the site is also situated within the conservation area. The local planning authority have liaised with our conservation and design team to seek specialist input on this application, and the application is considered to be satisfactory, subject to the implementation of the hedge and the removal of the fencing that was previously constructed.
Thank you very much. Just one or two observations from me, if I may. Big one, sir. Councillor Anketel, I'll come to you in a second, Councillor Anketel. Thank you very much. I read the inspector's report, and I suppose in a way I was slightly surprised to hear the applicant say that didn't realise it couldn't be used for holiday use. It was clearly stated in the appeal statement that it was for ancillary use only. It also made the point, I think it was in paragraph 8 of the appeal decision, that the garden had to remain as a single entity without partition. I mean, you can't actually participate now, Mr. Spooner, but I'm just wondering whether the appeal decision was obviously made known to the applicant or the appellant, as it was for the appeal. And I'm just slightly find it strange that the appeal decision, which was clearly enunciated in the report, was either ignored or disobeyed. And I think that causes some people a little bit of issue here, because don't forget, this was originally turned down by Lichfield District Council. It was one on appeal with conditions, and then those conditions were not adhered to. And I find that a little bit, I think as someone who's been involved in planning for quite a long time, we all understand that planning has rules, and those rules are there for a reason and to be adhered to. And when I see people playing fast and loose, that doesn't rest easily with me. So that's really all I wanted to say on that. And I don't know whether that accords with anybody else's views here, but the appeal decision was quite clear in its stated aims and directives. Councillor Anketel and then Councillor Powell, please.
I just wanted to say that the officer hadn't answered Councillor Mattis's question, which was, what is a short stay, what is a long stay? I think I read somewhere in the report that a short stay is something that is less than 1 month.
Alex.
Yeah, I can do. I'm not entirely certain on the exact definition for that, but it's worth noting condition number 4 within the recommendation to approve, restricting any approval to short stay holiday accommodation only, with a maximum stay of 1 month in any 12-month period. So hopefully that might address certain concerns.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ray in a moment, but Councillor Powell first, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and good evening. I actually agree with you on the appeal items. They have been ignored, and therefore I don't see why we're going for this approval when the applicant has ignored what he's been told to do. So I'd like to put forward that the conditions that were put forward as part of the winning appeal process are added as conditions with the set time that the applicant has to comply with them, or it doesn't happen. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Powell, thank you. I can see that the legal officer wishes to come in at this point.
Thank you, Chair. At the moment, the resolution in front of members is a resolution to approve. That's the resolution you're all discussing at the moment. It's been moved and seconded. Councillor Powell, what you're suggesting is essentially that you're arguing against that, and you're arguing for refusal. Essentially, we've got to deal with a motion in front of us first, which is the resolution of the Grant Planning Commission, and then obviously you need to argue against that. But if you want to move refusal, we can only do that when the motion in front of you has been dealt with and it's been determined.
Right. In that case, thank you. And yes, I will move against it on the grounds that it hasn't been met with the appeal, and it's the grounds of the appeal that I would use as the argument for moving against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. And thank you very much there to the legal officer as well. Councillor Ray, please.
Yeah, just coming back on your comments and Councillor Powell's comment, I think and I'm happy to receive the comments of the legal officer. We're here to make a decision on planning grounds. If the comments have been made about whether the applicant disobeyed or was mistaken in how they proceeded with the use of this property, we're not here to judge that decision, I don't think, or to punish if we felt that was the right thing to do. We are here to make a decision on planning grounds. And I think the other thing is, okay, there might have been some previous decision made on previous grounds before. The property is now being used for a period since May 21 as a holiday unit. It's been subject to a planning application. It's been subject to consultation, and now it's actually in reality being used for the purposes that the change of use has been applied for. And it seems to be acceptable to consultees, to neighbours, etc. That's, I think we should proceed on that basis. I think it's very important that even though there might be other feelings, this is a planning committee. We have to make a decision on planning grounds rather than any wider grounds.
I'm sorry, but the applicants,
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Thank you. Councillor Ray, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Now I'm just going to ask sorry, Claire, you wish to come in. Claire Billings, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, it's quite as Councillor Ray has explained. What we're looking at here is a fresh planning application. The application is for the conversion or reuse of this building for an alternative use rather than as an annex to the original dwelling house at 74. We need to consider it in accordance with its own planning merits and to whether their harm would be caused by virtue of that change of use or not. It is appreciated, obviously, that there has been a previous appeal on this site, and it was clear in terms of the inspector's decision about that association with the main dwelling and this building being an annex. However, we are now looking at a fresh application and we are considering new views, and officers have considered all those elements and feel that it is an acceptable proposal subject to the conditions set out. With regards to an application being retrospective, I accept and applaud in terms of that view. It is concerning that people do proceed on that basis, and it's not something officers or members endorse. However, it's not something that we could subsequently refuse a planning application on that basis alone. We would have to have sound planning reasons to do so.
Thank you very much indeed, Mrs. Billings there. Yes, I certainly wasn't arguing against this planning application as such. It was just my feeling that I never like to see applicants basically going against the wishes of the planning officer or the planning committee when a decision has been made. We've got Councillor Humphreys and anybody else after Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with you. There's something I think hasn't been thought out. This application is for probably all time. What happens in the future if the house is to be sold and they want to use it as a granny annex? Is that going to come back for another planning application?
My idea is that it would have to, yes, because it would be a change of use. This is a specific change of use to holiday accommodation, and it is solely for that purpose if this were to go through as the planning application is written at the moment. I'll just ask Alex Matthews just to come back on that question, but I think he will perhaps just confirm what I've said.
Yes, I'd agree with what was just mentioned there. We'd need a new planning application to consider that conversion back or change of use again.
Okay, thank you. Members, I think I've exhausted all the views and comments that you have. So in that case, it has been proposed that we follow the officer's recommendation for approval for this application. It was recommended for approval by Councillor Ray and it was seconded by Councillor Cross. So if I may ask for a show of hands, please, for those of you who are wishing to approve this application as it's written and presented in front of you. Thank you. I think that's 8, isn't it? Any against, please? And we have 3 against. Thank you. So that's everybody. Thank you very much indeed, members. By a majority of 8 to 3, I declare that application has been approved. Thank you. So that is 22/00143/FUL has been approved. Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to the second application for your deliberation this evening, members. And this is 22/00580/FUL. And to take us through this, you've drawn the short straw tonight, haven't you, Alex, with both applications? But sure, you can take it all within your stride. So if you'd like to please make this presentation for the next one, which is 17A Main Street, Allruas. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Right, the application under consideration relates to 17A Main Street in Orworth, and the development proposal hereby under consideration is the erection of 2 detached dwellings and associated works. On screen at the moment, we've got the red line depicting the application site. On the following slide, we've got an aerial view showing the application site again from above. So the application site relates predominantly to number 17A and the mainly the rear garden of this site. The frontage of number 19 is also forming part of the application. Property number 19 is also within the ownership of the applicant. So just flicking to the next slide, we've got photograph 2. So if you look down the 2 driveways depicted in photograph 2, we've got, that's where the proposed access is to run through between the 2 properties to the rear garden area of the site, where the 2 dwellings are proposed to be situated. It's worth noting that the surrounding area presents a mixed form of residential development with other infill development present nearby. Sites located within the settlement of Overross. It's not within a conservation area, and there are no protected trees within the site. There are no impacts on listed buildings, and it's also worth noting that the site does not fall within the Cannock Chase special area of conservation zone. So just going back to site photographs, we've got photographs 3 and 4 showing each of the two properties from the front. Photograph 5 presenting the rear garden of number 17A with the two dwellings proposed to be situated down the bottom end of the rear garden. In terms of the development proposal, each of the two dwellings is proposed to facilitate 2 bedrooms and 2 car parking spaces, one of which would be an internal garage space. Both properties are single story in terms of height. We've got a maximum ridge height of 5.2 metres noted. Generally a contemporary form of design is presented for the 2 dwellings. A generous provision of amenity space is incorporated. It's also worth noting that alterations are proposed to the frontages of number 19 and number 17A to ensure an adequate provision of off-street car parking is still able to be facilitated for each of those 2 properties. So on screen at the moment, we've got the proposed site plan showing the two dwellings at the rear of the site to the left of the plan as presented, and the access running from the highway furthest right between the 2 properties into the site. On the next slide, we have the internals, single story properties. So each of them 2 bedrooms. You've also got the internal garage presented, as well as the open plan kitchen, living and dining area. And the elevations are presented on this slide. As mentioned, a contemporary modern form of design presented on those elevations. So we've got this application being reported to planning committee following a call-in request from a councillor with comments of objection outlined. We've also got Overross Parish Council having presented comments of objection, and we've had 4 comments of neighbourhood objection. So these points of objection have been considered together with a review of the consultation input also received. Just to kind of summarise the consultation input, the principle of development is considered to be acceptable and supported by the Overross neighbourhood plan as well in terms of the infill. The county highways team have outlined no objections subject to recommended planning conditions. The ecology team is satisfied with the proposal subject to planning conditions again, as well as the agricultural team, again happy subject to conditions. So yeah, overall we've gone with a recommendation to approve subject to 12 planning conditions as outlined within the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. There you are, members. You've heard the report there from Alex Matthews, Planning Officer. And before we move on to questions and comments, I need to introduce our speaker, someone who is well known to some of you, I think, some of those who were with the council certainly 10 or 15 years ago will remember Rob Duncan, who used to work here, I believe. I think that's correct in saying, isn't it? Yes, indeed. So, Mr. Duncan, you have 5 minutes. You know the protocol. I won't dwell on it, so your time will start as soon as you commence speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's so long ago that I dare not to think. I'm an independent planning consultant here today to represent the applicants, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of this application. If I may ask the case officer if he could bring up the location plan in the presentation, please, as I'd like to make reference to that. As you heard from the officer, the application is proposing the erection of two-bedroom bungalows on this site, which is located within the defined settlement boundary of Olros. Concerns have been raised by the parish council that infilling on this site will set a dangerous precedent. However, the adopted policies of both the local plan strategy and the Olros neighbourhood plan specifically support infilling on sites within the development boundary of this larger village. Infill development of this nature is a notable characteristic of this part of the village, with numerous examples of backland development observable. On the location plan, you can see a couple of examples at number 7-8 to the east, numbers 8 and 10 Burton Road beyond that to the east, as well as number 42 and 44 Main Street to the southwest, and the land to the south of Park Road to the west of the site. One of the stated key objectives of the neighbourhood plan is to ensure that future housing development consists of infill and small-scale developments comprising of no more than 3 bedrooms, so that the development is dispersed and has a minimal impact on traffic flows within the village centre. The submitted proposal accords with that objective. Another key objective of the neighbourhood plan is to ensure that new developments includes high-quality properties for elderly downsizers to meet the current and projected demographic needs of the village, and the submitted proposal accords with that objective too. Concerns have been raised by the parish council that the design of the dwellings do not blend in with existing properties. It's important for members to note that there is a wide variety of architectural styles and palette of materials observable within the surrounding area. The proposed bungalows respond positively to the key characteristics of the area, encompassing a contemporary interpretation of a bungalow, but maintaining features such as gabled roofs and a mixture of brickwork and rendered elevations, all of which are in keeping with the local area. The use of a standing seam metal roof will have a dark appearance akin to that of a tiled roof, but will play an important role in reducing the levels of embodied carbon within the build. The site is also very discreet, with the dwellings being tucked away to the rear of the existing properties on Main Street, such that they will not have any material impact on views along either Main Street or Micklehome Drive. The low height of the dwellings at 5.2 metres means they'll have very little, if any, impact at all. Concerns have been raised by the parish council that the dwellings sit too close to their rear side boundary. Your adopted space-like dwelling standards require a distance of 6 metres to be achieved between principal windows and site boundaries, and 21 metres between principal windows that face one another. The proposed bungalows exceed both of those parameters, with some 30 metres achieved between the rear elevations and the properties in Micklehome Drive to the north. As a consequence, no harm to the amenity of neighbouring occupiers will arise. The dwellings also sit comfortably within their plots, with large gardens that far exceed the 65 square metre area threshold set out in your space-like dwelling standards. Finally, in terms of highway safety, the parish council cited concerns about the impact of development on parking in the local area. The submitted proposal has been designed to ensure that the 2 existing dwellings are provided with 2 parking spaces apiece, as required by your adopted parking standards, with the new dwellings also afforded 2 parking spaces apiece. And I draw attention to the fact that the local highway authority has not raised any objections to this application, and consequently there is no reasonable basis for refusing the application on such grounds. Overall, I submit there's a compelling case for this application to be approved. The principle of development is acceptable. The proposal achieves a high quality design that will not have an adverse impact on the character and appearance of the area, and neighbouring amenity will be safeguarded. I would therefore urge members to endorse the recommendation of the officers and the Grant Planning Commission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. I have to commend you actually, because in all of my time sitting here, I have seldom heard so much information concentrated into 4 minutes and 20 seconds. So well done. Thank you very much indeed for that. Members, I'm sure some of you will have points you wish to raise or questions which need answering. Can I just make the point that I know that permitted development rights are removed here. If you have a look on page 80 of your report at 3.8, permitted development is removed, if anybody was wondering about that. Okay, questions, comments, please, members, if you wish, just make that. Yes, Councillor Anketel, please.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the plan, the plot size of number 17A is about twice the size of neighbouring plots, and in some cases more than twice the size of plots. For example, house number 11 and the house behind it, it's about 3 times the size or more the whole plot. So there doesn't seem to be a problem with space. And one advantage is that there are two-bedroom houses, and we need more of such houses. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Councillor Anketel, thank you very much indeed for those points. Yes, it is not difficult to see, looking at the map, that that is a very sizable rear garden, and certainly very much larger than the ones adjacent to it. Any other points? Question, Councillor Baker, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to go back to some of the photographs, if I may, and just get a picture as to how close to the rear boundary the proposed properties are, whether there's any windows on the rear. And my third question, which is a comment raised by some of the objectors, is about the boundary treatment, that it isn't going to be the fencing, but will be appropriate landscaping and hedges, etc., which seem to already be there.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. I shall just turn to Planning Officer, then Alex Matthews, for him just to come back on that, please.
So firstly, in terms of the proximity to the boundary to the rear of the sites, so yeah, in terms of the private rear amenity space to the rear between the proposed built form and the most northern boundary, we've got plot 1 achieving a depth of approximately 7.6 metres and plot 2 a depth of approximately 7.2 metres. It is, however, noted that that is short of the 10-metre depth guidance outlined within the Sustainable Design SPD, but considering the overall amenity space in terms of the square metres provided, we've gone with a non-biased recommendation that an adequate provision of rear amenity is presented within the site for each plot, and that has been calculated at approximately 99 square metres and 86 square metres, so a significant chunk above the recommended 45 square metres for proposed 2-bedroom properties.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Yes,
sorry, that information is on page 79 of 3.6.
Can I come back on my second question, which was about rear windows? And then after that, I'll come back on my third question.
So rear windows, I'd suggest it's worth noting that the proposed dwellings are single-storey. In terms of overlooking, I don't think there would be any major impact due to the single-storey nature of the proposal. There's no first floor accommodation above the floor plan as presented, so I don't think there would be any major issues in terms of rear-facing windows for the proposed properties.
Thank you. So the bits I saw in the picture, I presume, were roof lights or something?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And then my third question was the rear, in particular, the rear boundary treatment. I was struggling. I'm sure there is a condition there, but I can't find it at the moment.
Yeah.
And there was a comment from somebody about they didn't like the idea of fences, which, you know, I personally don't like either.
Yeah, okay. It's worth noting condition 7 with regards to boundary treatments, which would include the rear boundary treatments for that element of the site. And yeah, that condition is prior to first occupation, the dwelling is hereby approved. We basically need to have details submitted and approved prior to the first occupation of the dwellings.
So if I may, could I request that the boundary treatments are, as I suggested, include some greenery and hedgerows, etc., not bare fences? I might need to ask our planning officers.
Yes, I'd be happy to insist on a sort of higher level of boundary treatments to the rear of the site with it. Obviously, we've not got a massive depth there, so I think a bit more flexibility and potentially a bit more work to achieve an improved provision. I'd be happy to try and incorporate that into the addressing of condition 7 at approval of condition stage.
Okay, so councillor Baker, then you've suggested that the boundary treatment as shown in 7 you think is needs some amendment. Okay. I'm just going to ask Mrs. Billings here to come up.
Through you, Chair. In terms of, there's 2 recommended conditions. There's one that relates to boundary treatment at condition 7, and then there's also condition 8 regarding to landscaping. One area of concern I would like to raise is if we have planting and no boundary fence could be transferred between the 2 sites to neighbouring properties. You could have dogs, as we've mentioned on the last application. You could have other issues in terms of not security within the site whilst vegetation is being established. So whilst we have got a landscaping condition to ensure there is landscaping greenery retained within the site or planted within the site, I think it would only be appropriate to have a secure means of boundary treatment really as set out and would be required within the condition recommended.
Okay, I take the point, and I think if we could just, when we come to that, if it's approved, that we do look at it from the viewpoint of the neighbours and the new ones, and I will leave that in your capable hands.
Okay, thanks very much, councillor Baker. So I think we probably agreed then that the landscaping itself is probably sufficient to ensure that there is a degree of vegetation in the gardens. Are you okay with that then, councillor Baker? Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Any other questions, please? Can I just point out as well, the point I think was made about windows, etc. The ridge height, as is clearly shown, is 5.2 metres, and that the windows shown in the roof, of course, are simply roof lights, which do not afford any views over surrounding gardens, etc. Councillor Humphreys, please.
Just quickly, is there space at the front on Main Street for the provision left for refuse bins? It's a hell of a trek down from those bungalows, and putting them on the pavement's not the ideal in this area.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Councillor Humphreys. Thank you. If I can just ask Alex Matthews, please, to come back on that. I think the idea is that there will be curbside collections. That's my recollection. Yeah.
My understanding is that there would be curbside collections, and I would suggest the presentation of bins on the shared driveway at the front of the site would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you very much. I realise the point you're making, Councillor Humphreys. I think it's probably about 40 or so yards, but it's not as though we're talking about a property that's going to be built on a very steep bank, is it? So I would imagine that an early morning walk down to the curbside with a bin is hopefully not too onerous for a future occupant of those houses, should they be given permission, of course. Any other questions or points, please, members? We haven't yet had anyone willing to recommend approval. Councillor Cross, are you recommending approval?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I am, Chair. This seems to be quite a nice little development. We need some small houses for people to downsize to. These are a couple of nice little houses, nicely tucked away. There don't seem to be any big issues here at all, and I propose that we support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Cross. Now, Councillor Checkland, I do apologise. I have missed the fact that you had your hand up, so I can only apologise for that.
I was going to propose it, but I'll second it instead.
Okay. As long as you don't mind playing second fiddle, Councillor Chetwynd. Thank you very much indeed. Members, you have it there. Councillor Cross has recommended approval of this application in keeping with the officer's recommendation, and it has been seconded by Councillor Chetwynd. Could I please have a show of hands then for those of you who are wishing to go along with the officer's recommendation for approval? Thank you. I think that's 11. Thank you very much. So that, as they say, is NEMCON. Thank you very much indeed. And while we're on the subject of Latin, I take it you all know that sui generis probably means out on its own, I think. Is that correct? Yeah. So those of you who did Latin at school, you'll all know that sui generis means all on its own, or to be taken as a unique example, effectively. There you are. You see, you didn't realise that. You know, every day is a school day. Members, I thank you very much indeed for your participation. If I could just ask that you remain behind once this meeting has finished, please, and once we've stopped the live streaming. Indeed, for your participation as well. I'd like to thank the members and the officers and any members of the public who've been in attendance here this evening. I would also like to thank very much those of you who've been joining us online, watching the live streaming here from Lichfield District Council's Council Chamber. I bid you all a very good night, and I'd like to tell you that the next meeting will not be in 4 weeks' time, but will be actually in 5 weeks' time, and will be on December the 5th. I look forward to seeing you all then. And with that, I bid you all a very good night. Thank you. The meeting is closed at 6:52.